You're running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Good morning, BigBeat. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I like these Fridays, where we've been talking about it for a while, where the White House stays quiet and things are good. Earnings coming in okay, and look at this, the market's melting up in our favor. So I'm liking this. Not this oil issue here is a little bit wonky, but look at that, gold coming down and Bitcoin looking good here this morning.
Yeah, absolutely regaining some steam. I'm not as bullish as you are today. President is already speaking. A lot of controversy coming out just now about whether or not we're speaking to China. So I'm personally more concerned on that. And then I'm going to be interested to see. I know it's a backward-looking figure, but we do have our lovely consumer sentiment to come in.
Sure.
So those are a couple of things that I do think could still put a little bit of a tamper in the day. I was very happy, like I said, as soon as QQQ broke that 466, it took all the way to after hours. Once it broke it, though, it broke through pretty quickly and decisively on the Qs. And we ended up with a nice up day. Right now, we're pretty neutral on the day, on the morning. Right now, the Qs set to open down slightly about 35 basis points, SPY down about 23 basis points, and advanced decline negative 700. Steve, we got to get right into Google, right? I mean,
that ad
found gorilla in the room.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the ads that was good. Those numbers were really good. I didn't expect that, to be honest with you.
You got to look at it. Their revenue, $90 billion, up 12% year over year. When you have a company that big and it's putting up that kind of number,
yeah.
And then get that. How about net income? $34.5 billion, a 46% increase. I mean, Google just nailed it every way you look at it. $70 billion share buyback program. You said to watch for that, right?
Yeah.
There was Mr. Flanagan. Mr. Flanagan brought that up, so we got.
They sure did.
I couldn't find anything that really didn't look good, although they didn't really get into the regulatory concerns that they're running into in Europe too much. Advertising revenue, an 8.5% increase. Search, which I was surprised with 10% growth, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, Gemini seems to be they're catching up a little bit to
so maybe they are actually getting their feet wet in the world of AI a little bit bigger, huh? And then YouTube was another one. YouTube was up even. I feel I was talking with some people yesterday, and to me, it seems like YouTube's dying compared to Twitter. In usage and the way. And I think the part of it is, as I was talking with this person yesterday, we were discussing the fact that YouTube's really become where you go to watch past events.
President Trump right now says two things. He's very close to a deal with Japan, says we're very close to a deal with Japan, and says that we just spoke with China's Xi Jinping. Wow. So he's actually speaking right now, and looks like some good news coming out of him.
That's what we want to hear. If we can get the good news, I do think it goes the right way. Like I said, China had come out just minutes ago and said that wasn't the case. So I don't know who to believe. I think they both lie, unfortunately, or have different views of what I guess a conversation is. Because, like I said, that has been, from both sides played down or played different ways. Also have a lot of other nice earnings reports to talk about, Steve. First of all, Tencent, big investment in Pony AI has them up the most today, up 21.27. So again, I guess AI is not dead. Pony AI, huge investment by Tencent in them, has them as the biggest pre-market gainer. But sticking into earnings, GE Healthcare, one of the offshoots of the original GE, is up about 4.73% here this morning. And I do have headlines on them, I believe. There it is. and they actually have had earnings since then. And I have some results here.
Christine Lagarde, ECB's president, now says the disinflation process is well on track.
There you go. Well, that's good news. That could get the market moving a little bit here. If everybody's going to speak good today, that would definitely get moving in the right direction. What else are you watching today, Steve?
You know, I'm just keeping my eye clean today because I think that I think a lot of people are just kind of tired right now watching the markets and stuff. I really think that there's not much that I want to play with today. I think the volume is so low. You just saw a Bitcoin hit 95,000, and as soon as it did, it dropped to 94,000. I mean, the volume here just is it's nervousness is still in the market. It's a Friday. I just would be careful today. Today was one of those days if you can't go long or short today, you'll get caught. That I do still expect a lot of back and forth in the trade talks, and today is one of those days. I mean, we know that we call it Trash Friday, right? In Washington, you talk about things on Friday because people don't care anymore. They're out, especially now going into May here, that they're going to the pool and they're going to hang out. They don't really care going into summer. So I would be very careful here. I wouldn't be too bullish or too negative today. Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense. Volatility is going to be still in play without a doubt. That's going to be I think that's going to be a couple of months of that, though. I don't think that's just today. Yeah, like you said, Bitcoin, nice move up overnight. A couple of headlines there. Our friends over at ARK Management now say Bitcoin could hit $2.4 million a coin by 2030. That's their bull case. Their base case is 1.2 million, and then their bear case, worst case scenario, is 500K. You know, you hear those numbers, it's hard to believe it, but they do break down how they get there.
Look, I get it. She's really. I like Kathy. You know, she's had a very long track record in the markets. She's been around a long time, and she really. She's one of those people who just, you know, no matter how you don't understand how she came to her numbers, you still want to kind of believe her, right? She's got a little Trumpy in her a little bit, you know. Okay. You know, she's not far off with her cases. She's made a case. She's made a strong case. We posted that in our own Twitter as well. Let's break it down. What she's thinking. She thinks that sovereigns are going to be buying a lot more. She's not wrong, right? But the adoption of Bitcoin, where we are going to the stores and we're using Bitcoin to buy a hamburger, just isn't there yet. Now, when that happens, Bitcoin ain't $1 million, it's $20 million, right? We're not there. We need base case adoptions. And when we do that, I think the world's going to change. Now, I will defer to you, Howard, in understanding of the hash rates and what we need in the miners and what we need in computers to make this happen. The microtransactions, we need quantum computing in a lot of ways. Okay, then yes, I think she's right. With that said, I own a lot of Bitcoin, right? I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, even though I am going to the Bitcoin conference here next month. I will say that two things. The first thing with her is she does believe it because she is seeing the adoption rate of the Michael Saylors of the world, right? She is buying herself. 0.72. Some of these big firms that are out there, Scaramucci, and name them. They're all buying. They're all accumulating. They're not buying. They're accumulating, and they're buying over time on dips. They're not waiting for the market to go to 5 million and then buy more. Right? They're accumulating when the retail gets scared. So they're allowing they're pushing the narrative of, oh, the world's going to end tomorrow. Drop your Bitcoin, give it to me. The problem with that is if we are going to have adoption, you are going to buy a hamburger with Bitcoin, the retail needs to have that money, or it's not going to be that way. So the narrative she is saying is that it is a store of value. That was the second point that she made. And so in that store of value, are people accumulating Bitcoin as if it's gold? That I will again defer to you, Howard. Are people accumulating Bitcoin?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Yeah, she doesn't look at it as a currency that's going to be used
Correct.
on a daily basis, or that is not the way that the price moves. And I agree with her, because that would be Lightning Network, and it'd be a matter of using it like a stable coin. And in that case, that isn't really, it doesn't change hands. It moves from my hands to the store's hands, the store's hands back to my hands. That's just like regular currency. It doesn't go up and down in value by the amount that you use it. What does is that she says that it's going to be 6.5% of the projected $200 trillion global investment portfolio by 2030.
Right.
Now, for me, that's rather aggressive, since gold's current share is 3.6. So she has it basically doubling what gold is currently.
That's only in 4.5. That's only in 4.5 years. It's not like,
yeah. I mean, so now she gives her base and bear scenarios as 1% and 2.5. I can live with both of those. So I fall in line more with her base or bear market look. She anticipates Bitcoin competes directly with gold as a store of value. And their projections do not assume gold will grow from its current levels much.
Okay, so again, let me ask you this then. When you have grandma and grandpa starts to hand their gold over to Billy Boy, and he says, Grandma, I thank you for the gold, but I don't know what to do with it. I want to buy my brand new Switch with my Bitcoin. How does he transfer the gold into Bitcoin? Will we see that kind of selling from gold into Bitcoin?
I think that's why she doesn't think gold will grow. I think it's the transfer, and it is. It's going to be the generational transfer of wealth that's happening, to the next generation, that is going to, move it to that. Like I said, that's where I can get to 2.5 or 3% using that theory. I don't get to 6.5 myself. I am not as bullish as her. What you then see, and where I do agree that it is going to be bigger than a lot of people realize, is the financial lifeline in inflation-prone and devalued fiat environments.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's one of her lines.
Okay, so I have a bunch of gold. I am going to go, you know what? I really want to buy Bitcoin today. How do I do that? I got physical gold. How do I buy Bitcoin out of that, right?
It's 2 transactions right now. It won't always be 2 transactions. But now you'll go sell your gold to Peter Thomas over at AU Secure, and then you'll come over to Quasar, and you can do it all on the Quasar platform, actually. You'll sit on your Quasar platform, you'll sell your gold through AU Secure, and you'll purchase Bitcoin through Binance. So, that's how you'll do it. It will be that easy in the future, let's face it. Gold's the big hard part, right? Because if you have physical gold, you can't do it easily. You've got to go bring it to someone who's going to melt a part of that down, unless it's a coin. To make sure that it's pure and all this stuff, right? They check purity, they do all these tests. It isn't going to be that easy. So she does bring up, and I do think that that's what you're going to see more and more of. The world still doesn't have, and BRICS isn't an answer, and either is NATO when it comes to like a sovereign, currency that's going to be everywhere. Bitcoin's going to be that. Government adoption, I do think it's going to get bigger and bigger. I don't think U.S., like she points out, highly in there, the March 2024, executive order is a big one. I think it's going to be more the El Salvador's, the Bhutan, that realize that it's all these countries that have excess energy are going to start to mine Bitcoin. We've seen more and more of it, and we see there. And then 74 publicly traded companies held 55 billion in Bitcoin by the end of 2024. Well, we know that just increased by over 10 billion just with the advent of 21. So, that's where you're going to see it. These corporate treasuries that add there. And then what she left out is pension funds, right? And long-term huge sovereign funds. Those are the other aspects to me that will move that needle tremendously. So,
Canada just came out with 4 retail sales for February. They're always behind. 0.5% versus 0.2%. Previous reading that was down 0.6. I think those retail sales in Canada are up because Canadians are staying in the summertime. They're not leaving. They're not going down to Florida for the winter. So that's that. I mean, look, Canada's winning in this situation here.
Yeah, I don't know if they're winning, but they're not. Yeah, what is happening is the nationalism there is definitely swung, versus the U.S., and that's definitely, been a problem.
Let's get to stocks. What do we got on the burner here this morning? Howard Greenberg.
For stocks, you got everything going on. So you had, we just said, big winner or loser, excuse me, SAIA. This is a big one that you sort of keep an eye on, right? It is freight companies as a bellwether for the economy.
That's right.
And they had a pretty big miss, down right now 22% on this drop here. And then when I look at their numbers, shipping volumes declined tremendously. Where is that? So there they are. They were down 5.8% year over year on their revenues. Their net income was down almost 40% versus last year. Last year, 90.7 million. This year, 49.8 million. Their EPS miss was from 277 down to 186. And they're seeing softer freight demand. So does this spook you a little bit, Steve?
I mean, we've only seen it for the last 3 months, right? With all this talk of tariffs, of course, freight's down. Look, I was just posting yesterday in regards to freight in general, right? And shortages, and we are seeing shortages. If these tariffs come down. Now, listen, during COVID, we had shortages, but we still had things coming in. It was just slower pace because there was more. You had to wear masks, and there were more safety issues going on.
Less workers in the
and it's like, no, screw you. We're not sending you anything. And shortages are going to be even bigger. And they've already started.
I can tell you that I actually I do a lot of shopping at Restaurant Depot because I still have membership there from my restaurant days, and their shelves of seafood are bare of frozen seafood. You know why? All that frozen seafood comes from China. All of the tuna that you get, that sushi grade tuna, all of like that shrimp is from Thailand.
That's right.
Or Venezuela. So you're going to start to see it first in your seafood. So watch that as a quick one to keep an eye on. But they're running through. We know so many companies, you haven't seen the problems yet because so many companies did front run this. And they bought as much as they could afford to buy. The problem is that we're running through some of those supplies. So that's a concern I have also, Steve. Steve, on the other side of Google, who killed it, Intel not exactly killed it. Down 7.4% here. They did have a slight revenue beat, but they're still at a net loss, $821 million. I was surprised to see that. EPS
and you would say that, okay, Intel should be doing well because we're bringing manufacturing back home. We're not here yet. Yeah. And it's not going to happen. Look, we produce chips quite well. We don't manufacture chips very well, meaning that we are really good at
designing. Right.
That's right, and creating and building, but we're not very good at duplicating. Nor do we want to duplicate. Right, let other countries do that for us cheaper. Look, it is interesting when we talk about the Intel world, how quickly and how far the mighty have fallen, right? I mean, Intel, you always had Intel inside, right, in your laptop. But this is what we talk about. You and I are investing in NVIDIA because I think NVIDIA is still the leader here. And
I want to interrupt you because it's so important. I was talking to one of our viewers yesterday. Jay, hope you're having a good morning. And I was explaining because he is still having a hard time with our thing that, you can't let a short-term trade turn into a long-term loser. This is a perfect example, right? If in 2021, when it was trading at 62, if you bought and did not get out of Intel, it has never gotten there. It's gotten to 50, and you probably, when it got to 50, would say, well, it's going to get right back to where it was. And here I go. Well, guess what? It's trading at 21 today. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is, I think, so important for the newer traders to understand what we're talking about. Intel, like I wouldn't have expected that, if you said to me, if you bought in 2021, how are you doing on Intel today? You're down, from 60 to 21.
Yeah.
Or to 20.
Yeah. And there's nothing here to telling me that I want to buy Intel.
Not yet.
I want to buy Intel just because it's a Yeah, they're having
U.S.
problems.
company, right? A bastion of what we do.
They're
All
having
those good
problems.
things. I'm with you, but it's there's certain stocks I can grab my nose and just buy. At certain times, that's not one of them right now, so to speak. On the good side, we'll go back and forth a little bit here. We have AbbVie, another one of the biotechs had some pretty good earnings, right? Merck and Eli Lilly, and now ABBV. Their revenue was up 8.4%. They did have an adjusted EPS at 246, which was a little bit of a win. Their key drivers were Skyrizi, 3.43 billion. So what I liked here is, again, even their top three don't equal what we saw yesterday with Merck, where that one drug was responsible for over like 60%. Their Rinvoq sales 1.72 billion, and Humira, which sales have declined 50%, is still $1.12 billion of their sales. They did raise their adjusted EPS forecast to about $12.20. So they are seeing a nice little move to the upside here, Steve. Biotech seem to be weathering the storm pretty well.
I mean, look, there's two things going on. Weight Watchers yesterday declares bankruptcy once again as they restructure.
Haven't they done that like 7 times, it seems like to me?
No, but the what's interesting is weight loss drugs have been just killing it. I mean, we've said this all along. Yeah. Food restaurants, they're all, we talked about this for months now, and here it is. It's roosting now, right? And it's, when we look at what things are being taken care of, cancer, I noticed that lately we've seen a lot of stomach issues that they're being handled. We've had a big pop, unfortunately, because people won't get vaccinated. Shingles, measles has popped up. So those companies are doing very well right now. Why help out the pharmaceuticals? They already make enough money. And the next level of this now, it looks like to me that you're starting to see cancer is becoming the number one thing to go fight. And there's some major breakthroughs. And I think with OpenAI and his AI companies, we are solving these problems faster and faster now because of quantum computing and artificial intelligence.
AI. Well, we know that Mark Andreessen talked about the future of AI is in healthcare so much, right, in his opinion, yes, and I couldn't agree more. In so many different ways, from just organizing our health data for individuals and making it easy for hospitals. Yep. If you go from one hospital to another for something, it's still like the ages 1,000 years ago of trying to get your data to the new place. Which is crazy. AON, Steve, they missed on profits down here today. Got some numbers on them. They did have a revenue, year over year. They're up about 5%, but they missed estimates on their EPS. Was expected to come in around $6.04, came in around $5.67. They cited the higher operating expenses due to their acquisition of NFP. And that their interest income dropped 82%. So I thought that was interesting. And they have been moving down throughout that. Any thoughts on Aon?
We're just now hearing that U.S. House Minority Leader Jeffries says that I don't believe there is bipartisan support in Congress for military intervention in Greenland. Is there some? Are we thinking about invading Greenland here in the last few days here?
No, like I said, the rhetoric, that's a typical, that's a typical DC headline right there. Those are the things that just, you're like, well, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. When you talk about it from that perspective, invading a quiet country, yes, I get it, what they have, and I get that they understand that the Russians are moving in, but this is a whole different situation here.
Yeah. Going back to earnings, I can't stay on that too long listening to those people talk like that. T-Mobile had a beat on their EPS. Their revenue was up 6.6% year over year. The net income, $2.95 billion. They beat their EPS, and they added 495,000 postpaid customers, but that was below estimates by about 10 or 15 grand there. They did raise their 2025 adjusted EBITDA forecast a little bit. shares are down though about 5% here. You like T-Mobile here down on this pullback, Steve?
I do not.
Flying.
Yeah. Well, let's revisit this situation when both Apple and Samsung have their new phones coming September. If you're looking to invest in these companies, then do it sometime in the summer, or as we go into the sales of these new phones.
The new Apple, yeah.
But we'll also need to know whether or not the tariffs are on there. So if tariffs are really heavy on phones, then no, it's going to be very bad, right? I mean, it's going to be very expensive, and people like ourselves that didn't upgrade in the last cycle because they're waiting on this cycle. Now we're getting hit with tariffs. It's like kabam, kabam. No, I don't think so. I think T-Mobile, but I will say that Elon Musk partnering with T-Mobile with Starlink is very good. But I'm also saying that it's also now in every place. So it'll be commoditized with Starlink very soon, with everybody having Starlink in their phone. It'll just be
and if not
wrapped
Starlink,
into the
they'll have ASTS or someone else's. Yeah. Staying on that freight a little bit there, Steve. ODFL getting beat up again. Another one.
Old Dominion.
Yeah, Old Dominion Freight. Their revenue was down 5.8% year over year. Net income down 12.9%. Again, they're saying, economic environment impacting freight volume. So, I mean, I feel like I see just as many trucks on the street today as I did a year ago, but I guess I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, I would take that chart you have in front of you, and I would type in CSX. And then I think you would probably understand a little bit more of the context of what's going on in the world, because you've seen it over the last 3 months, right?
They're down just as much.
Correct. You knew this. Trucking is the last line. It was what we call the last line of shipping before you get to the Amazons of the world where there's a van, right? It's we call it the last mile. And so if you want to know what's going on in the world, look up FedEx, look up CSX. We call this Dell theory in a lot of ways, right? You want to know what's going on in the world before you see it in movement.
Yeah, FedEx was one of the big losers earlier this morning.
Correct.
They still are down about 2%.
You know what's going on, right? CSX told you a long time ago.
Now President Trump is saying he spoke to Z numerous times.
Yeah, he was on his way to Rome, I think. It's interesting that Melania never goes with him, or hasn't been seen in over 4 months, and he goes to Rome and she shows up. So I think she thinks she can't wait to go to Rome, to Italy. So look, I get it. I don't really understand the process right now of what's going on. When you look at the world of tariffs, it's getting worse and worse. We're seeing backups now, and I think you just said it here with ODFL. Old Dominion Freight Lines is the ones that moves it from off the shippers, the docks, or moving homes too. They also move freight too as well, big freight. So if you're moving your home, you can call ODFL. If you're moving, look at that. Are people moving around the country? And they are not. Right. They're staying still. Are Canadians coming down and buying homes in Florida and Texas? No, they are not. They're selling their
trying
homes.
To sell them.
Right. And they don't have much in them because their furniture, they'll just sell it with it. So what? We can't use those Hawaiian shirts in Toronto in the winter. So
it is funny how in Florida that most homes do almost sell with fully furnished, right?
Of course, yeah. Either they pass away or whatever. Yeah. Here we go. We're now open.
We are open here. First move is to the upside on the Q slightly. We're at 467.17. So that's what I'm going to keep an eye on here. 467.41 now. So we are seeing a little bit of strength, basically flat, but moving to the upside. Tick pretty flat too, 20.18. So much more subdued than what we had seen over the last few mornings. So I definitely think your volume theory here of it sort of melting away today could definitely be at play.
Spot gold 32.69. I mean, there was 3,500 just a couple of days ago. With all the tariff talk and things getting back to normal, according to them, then of course you're seeing it starting to slip here. The Dixie 99.77 here, almost back to that 100 handle there. So let's see where we go with that. But adding pressure
is coming back for sure.
Silver getting absolutely slaughtered here, 33.30 to 32.84, 50 cents. Whew. That's retail trade. It's retail selling. That's exactly what that is. So, and that's retail selling into the ETFs. That's probably zero DTEs coming through. So I don't
You
really
see a little bit of profit taken here on Google starting off. We'll keep an eye
it's
on
Friday.
that.
I mean, you should expect it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you woke up with it up, 4 or 5%, that's take your profit. Nice move up by Tesla this morning there, up another 1.2%, 262.54, moving to the upside. Nvidia pretty flat on the day so far. Netflix 1093. Yeah, I believe it broke. No, it didn't. Yeah, 1101. It broke to 1101. Wow, tick slightly negative, still advanced decline, negative about 1800. We now see the indices moving slightly negative. Bitcoin back at 94,300 or so. Steve, the other big news there that sort of worries me is that the Fed has withdrawn crypto guidance for banks. No more mandatory approvals for crypto activities, and banks gain flexibility.
I feel like I'm in the Old West, and I'm going to pull out the 2 6-shooters and shoot them in the air. Bam, 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 bam.
Oh, there you go. I said Netflix right there, back over a new all-time high, 1100 right there. Boom. Yeah, as you know, I don't like that. I don't want banks to be rehypothecating Bitcoin. And for those that don't know, they rehypothecate the dollar. And every dollar you give them, they lend it out 7 or 8 times. I don't want to see that happen with Bitcoin.
It already is. I mean, I think we're already seeing that now. But oof, Bitcoin now also slipping here, 94,000 to hit that 94 handle there.
Yeah, the key resistance 95,303. I have moved up my sort of buy order here to 88,968 right now. I do think we could revisit the 86 area, but I'm more looking for a pullback to this 88,844 area as a good spot for a swing trade.
Yeah, I think this first move to the sell side is just silly. I think this is just retail.
Yeah, this could give me an opportunity to maybe play something today.
Yeah, I was going to say I might be changing my theme.
If I see an irrational, first thing I'm looking at is 466, which was my key area, right? 466. Does that hold up as the support here today? Or do we fall right back? If we don't, that means we're still trading between 4.
Well, I think that the algos wiped out the some of the these
zero
stocks.
DTEs, and you've got, remember, today is Friday, we got expirations.
Yeah, and at the end of the month, I get it. But I still see the melting up to the upside, but nothing crazy here. I wouldn't. There's really nothing going on here, and the president's on his way to Rome, so probably stay quiet while the next 6 hours.
No, doesn't he always talk on that damn plane? Because they're right there. That's what scares me, is getting on a plane with a bunch of reporters.
Yeah, no, I understand. I've had the wonderful opportunity of spending many hours on Air Force One. And I can tell you that when look at it from the perspective of the back end of the plane where the reporters live and Secret Service, they get along back there. Listen, the president is trying to get some work done in the front of the plane. So there is a separation in the plane, and I think that it will be quiet for a while. Look at that on NVIDIA popping, huh? See? Yep, that's what I'm saying. I thought that the selling. I think my thesis might be changing a little bit. We might be okay here. 107 again on.
But now we move back to the positive. That 466 on Qs held up nicely. So that level that yesterday or has been resistance, literally going back 2 weeks, now could be holding as support. That's what we want to see. That's how you can get that melt up Steve's been talking about, is you go layer by layer.
Yeah, you look at it from the perspective of the retail, thinking that they got smart and took some profit off. Okay, but I didn't see any catalyst for that. Like I think I said that the volume is slow. Okay, well, guess what? Your algos just took your money from you and put it in some big fund that's probably just taking your money in big cigars. Look, I get it. I just think I don't think that the thesis has changed. Ticks up 130 right now. Nothing here has really changed my thesis here. We continue. What does it actually mean that Fed is withdrawing crypto guidance for banks? I mean,
so if last year, basically or 2 years ago now, the Biden administration put out a rule that if you wanted to deal with a crypto company in any way, shape, or form, you had to get prior approval from the Federal Reserve, and you had no objectionary rights. So no one even bothered. So in other words,
Right.
they basically
Okay,
said to a
but
bank, if you spend any time and effort, we might walk in and tell you, well, guess what? You can't do it. And know what your recourse for that is? Nothing.
right, but we now know that we have a much more friendly crypto administration, but withdrawing crypto guidance. Okay,
Well,
no,
no, they're saying they're going to monitor it the same way they monitor all banking funding.
correct. That's what I'm
So,
saying. This isn't like a free for all. This isn't what they can do whatever they want. It's still going to be
right,
monitored like a regular.
but let's face
Yeah.
it, the banks have broken the system. They broke the mortgage system. They've broken other systems in the past. That is what worries me. And then they wait to be, unfortunately, banks tend to, in my opinion, use the don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, right?
Okay, so let's take this theory a little bit farther then. So do you think that the Jamie Dimons, all the way down to the regional bank presidents, are going to start buying crypto
It's
in
not
a
about buying
different way?
crypto. It's about stable coins, about developing their own stable coins without the right protections, without the right, backing, verification, security. Because all it takes is JP Morgan to make a coin, not do it right, and get hacked. And then what happens? The whole industry
Right.
takes a huge step back. So I'm a crawl,
But I
walk,
think that
run
there
guy,
should be
as you
some
always say, right? Crawl, walk,
right.
run. I don't need a
But
bank
let's
sprinting.
but let's have regulation around crypto too. We can't
Right,
just
I
let
want
Willie
it.
nilly.
That's what I want. I am a firm proponent that we don't want a
Billy
completely
Joe Blow
deregulated
can't be
crypto.
making his own coin, and that becomes JP Morgan's new coin.
Yeah, right. And I'm not worried about JP Morgan, but I am worried about the local regional bank that has somebody who thinks that they can now, we saw it with Silvergate and some others, right? That took some
Right.
risky moves and put all their eggs into one basket. And that puts banking at risk. And I don't want to put banking at risk with crypto. Because that would be the death toll. That's all Elizabeth Warren and her crew needs is for a bank to run into trouble because of crypto. And remember, it never happened with Silvergate. It never happened with any of those banks. It was the fear of it happening that led to them being sold off and closed and everything else. Basically, again, the Biden administration said, "Oh, this is spooky. You've got too much money. Too much of your money is Tether, Coinbase, and these other companies. So you need to divest of that." That's ridiculous. But also saying, hey, go ahead and start building new technology of stable coins traded around the world, and we're not going to really regulate it until you do it. Don't stick your head in the sand. So
GME is up 1% here. I think GME is probably up on that switch too here. I was hearing about 7 million orders for the switch 2. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
All right, 94.6 now on Bitcoin. We're gonna get back 95 here. How are we going back?
I mean, 95 is a big sell wall. So that's where the sell wall is right now. You're going to have to watch that. If we do break it, we will run. Now, I will say I was looking at the alts, quite honestly, more than Bitcoin today.
Yeah.
Again, if you listen to me, I've been talking about Fed AI for the last 2 weeks. It was trading at 60 cents. Now it broke 70 earlier today, broke 72 earlier. This is a 4-hour chart, just so everybody knows. This is not my daily chart. Also, Solana was the other one. I mean, again, I talked about Solana when it broke below 100, right? Back at 153. Those are the things that I'm looking at right now. I like Solana on a pullback here. I like Fed AI on a pullback here. Those are the two that I'm sort of targeting today. Any pullback to about 67 cents on Fetch AI, and any further pullback to the 150 area. I'm looking for a bounce and retest of 150 here on Solana, and I'd be interested to go long there on those two. So Bitcoin is a little tougher. Bitcoin, quite honestly, to me, like I said, I'm more looking at it from the side there that we're a little top heavy at 95. It's going to take a little bit to break through. If you do break 95, though, you've got room up to about 98. So if it breaks 95, watch out above. That's what I will say. So again, like you said, I wouldn't be short. Lucky Charts. Happy Stop Hunt Friday. Yeah, and I will say I had someone again, Steve, you don't really what do you think about the algos searching out your stop losses?
They've been doing that for decades.
I know. I mean, it's not anything new. I mean, to
While it's
me,
not an algo in the past, or now in the past, the big firms will go searching out for those liquidity stops. That's why I don't like giving them where I'm at. Right, I'm on that list, and they know where my stops are, so I try not to give them my list early. So I will say that Fridays, we talked about this, but volume is going to be low today, so be careful out there. And they're going to go searching for liquidity. So, and they have the ability to push the markets around. So, they may find it may be one of those stocks out of the blue, just takes a big dip, and for what reason, right? So we need to be very vigilant when we see those things. But right now, no, I don't see. So, just keep your eye on linear regression. Today's a linear regression day in a lot of ways.
yeah, I do agree.
Lowest common denominator, right? What's the path of least resistance? And it's probably to the I mean, right now, I think the path of least resistance right now in crypto is to the downside, honestly, because we've had such a run here. But
that's why I said, like I said, at 95, I would be looking to take some profit and, take a little breath. It might not, you might get mad because it might move up to 98 and tomorrow, but it's going to come back down to a level where you get that buy that you want. Like I said, I've targeted that 88 area and change for myself, 88,772.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. The market hasn't even moved. I mean, it's dead. Okay. So China's embassy just came out and said China and U.S. are not having any talks on tariffs.
That's what I mean. I mean, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't make that one more clear. That's all I see. I feel it.
I mean, you have to. Who's telling the truth here? China says we're not. Trump says we are. They're both known liars. So is the truth somewhere in the middle?
Well, that's what I mean. Is what is the conversation? And who? Well, that's what I mean. Is I don't want to pick a side on this one because, like I said, I think they both tend to, to do stuff, and it's just.
We're hearing a report. Eli Lilly, and we talked about this. I'll post this too as well. Let's see if I can do this here. Post it across the bottom, talking about Manjaro and scripts for weight loss drugs. Look at this. Woo! Another 4,000 scripts for Zepbound. Look at that. 338,900. So we are still getting a lot of prescriptions for these weight loss drugs. They're still coming in. Those are new orders. Whew. That's just a lot.
Yeah. Like I said, all of them had great earnings. That's why I asked you, is healthcare back? I mean, all these companies are showing great earnings. And even we saw UNH and those other companies say that Medicare is treating them okay, right? That it wasn't the big fear factor of Trump and Doge coming in and cutting all that money, or at least it hasn't, happened yet. So, that's why I was asking earlier. I do think healthcare might have a little bit more room to run than some of the other sectors. We know it was beat down badly over the last 7 months, 8 months, a lot of them.
Yeah, we're seeing tick now down 400 here, but nothing really pushing on it here. So I think we're going to see a push up here, another run to the top upside here.
Yeah, I think for me it's going to be while I think it has absolutely no bearing and shouldn't affect how you trade today, I think the consumer sentiment coming out is going to be the big thing, right? Not much going on, as you said. We're just sliding down slightly, but the Q's trying to hold. It's holding that 466 so far.
Again, Chinese embassy now says that the United States should stop creating confusion, according to the Chinese embassy now.
When the embassies talk, I don't listen as much as that's just rhetoric. I want to hear what Z has to say. Is he going? I mean, it'll be interesting too. Is China going to do they go to the Pope's funeral? They got to send somebody.
I'd say just have a big boxing match or MMA style.
Yeah, let them fight it out, UFC
Let them
style.
all
Let's
beat
go.
the hell out of each other, right?
Hey, you're in Rome, the Gladiators. I've been to the Coliseum. Go for it. Still in pretty good shape. I'd go sit there.
Yeah, Steve Flanagan says embassies don't negotiate trade. That is true. They do not. But I would also say that the embassies are in charge of keeping the peace.
Well, and
And
China's embassy acts much differently than a lot of embassies.
that is
As
true.
you know.
94.7
Their
now.
embassies, their embassies have a lot more autonomy. Well, not autonomy. They're directly linked more than a lot of others. You don't have dissension. There's no opinion, I should say, in a
France's President Macron says that he will not be holding any diplomatic meetings on the sidelines of the funeral events to mark the death of Pope Francis. So
that answers my question. Thank you. That's what I was wondering. Could this maybe give us some good news over the weekend? Wow, Q's 466. It looks like we're going to challenge it to the downside here, moving a little bit down.
It's kind of what I was thinking, that this
Bitcoin back up at 494,600 here, Steve. So holding up well. I do think if you see any good news, crypto will be what moves this weekend to the upside. So
oil pushing higher here is 62.52 here.
That's sort of interesting because some of the earnings on the oil companies were some of the bigger laggards also. And they were mentioning that it's not drill baby drill. I think it was
correct. It is not drill baby drill.
How do you say that name? Schumlicher or whatever?
We've been talking about that for how long, that there won't be this. There's so much oil in the ground that we already have drilled.
They made it clear that it's not.
That's silly talk.
Hey, Steve, do you know anything? I'll tell you what rabbit hole I started to go down, but luckily I fell asleep last night, was deep sea mining of minerals.
Okay, that's a very good question. There are not very many organizations or companies that can actually do deep sea mining. It's a different way of mining, whereas we send this, on top. I can explain all of this. Being a son of a miner, I can tell you that you have these big buckets that sit on top of the ground, and they dig in the hole and they pull things up, and then the world changes. Then there are veins where you send down machines, and what they call long walling, where they go across for veins for coal or gold or whatever, and they have these machines that grab and it spins and it sucks it up, and then there's a machine behind it that pulls out the stuff. You can't do that in the water, especially not on the top of the water, because so what do they go in the deep mining in the ground? So what happens is they have these machines that sit right on the bottom, and they spur it up, and then they have a machine on top that sucks up the dust and the dirt and throws it up around so they can see what's down underneath there and start pulling it up. It is very expensive. It is very costly. It is not easy, but that's where a lot of the minerals are that have been hidden for so long, because it's so hard to get to them. So I can see that direction, but I don't understand why we're going that direction, considering we have so much of it ourselves right now. Now, what we are looking for is molybdenum and lithium and things of that nature that we do need, but it's harder. We're not going down deep sea mining for gold. Okay, we're not going down there.
No. It's it was the minerals you need for batteries was basically
correct. Lithium.
I think I saw cobalt. I'm trying to find it on the article here. Unfortunately, it was a long article.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he has not looked directly at whether to remove the federal luxury tax yet. I can see him doing that, right? Being nice to the rich people in Canada and saying, hey, look, I'll take that tax off of you if you'll stick around and stay, right? Right? Hey, don't go to Florida. Don't spend your money in Florida. Go spend it up in Canada, and we'll take that luxury tax off. And then all of a sudden, those watches and diamonds and gold jewelry gets bought. Look, if you don't know, Canada is one of the biggest gold miners and diamond miners in the world. De Beers is in Canada, so I totally understand it, right?
Cobalt, nickel, and manganese is what they're going to get from the deep sea. And the company, the play for that, although it's funny, it's down 8.5% here today. You could be a nice one to play on a bounce back, is a Canadian company, the Metals Corp, TMC, who has gotten the contract already. They are joining in the U.S., sidestepping the ISA environmental groups. and they are going to start doing it. That's who they're partnering with. So it'll be interesting to see here. Interesting that they chose a Canadian company, but I guess that the biggest, we don't have mining companies that are as, probably as sophisticated as theirs, because like you just said, there's so much mining done in Canada. But that's who they're partnering with there. Tick has gone slightly positive, but advanced decline sitting down right around negative 2,000 so far.
8 minutes down to the numbers, right? So I know that Steve Flanagan does not like these numbers. These are college numbers, right? That are made up. But I do want to see consumer sentiment. I am concerned about are people changing their everything, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it has much to do, but what I do know is it seems that, it does move the needle, right?
Yes.
I don't know that it sort of should, but should, could, and would, right? The 3 big words. Ticket is still moving down. I got to be honest with you. Advanced decline moving pretty rapidly to the downside now. Mag 7, Nvidia almost neutral, Apple, Microsoft negative, Amazon negative. Amazon had a big day yesterday, by the way. Netflix down about a 0.5 percentage point here. We do see Google up at 1.95%, but again, that's a blow off from a high of 168. So 168.24 they hit earlier today. Now back at 164.63. So we are seeing a little bit of a move to the downside here, a little bit of profit taking happening here. Same thing, Pony AI. You're seeing definite profit taking here across a lot of these. GE Healthcare again moving to the downside a little bit since the cash open. ABBV, a big move to the downside since that cash open here. Same thing, APP was one of the bigger ones. That one's been sliding all morning here. You can see last 4 hours after topping out at 280, now down 267. So what is holding up nicely, MicroStrategy back up at 358.73. So it broke through my resistance at 350 there, Steve. Makes me very happy with my MicroStrategy here and still looking strong. I guess my don't fade the Musk is going to turn to don't fade the Sailor.
Why? Because Michael Saylor doesn't really challenge me when it comes to my Bitcoin, right? I don't buy because Saylor says I'm buying, right? I buy.
They just buy whenever they want. They don't
just buy whenever he wants. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't look at price. They just raise whatever they can and buy whatever they can.
And it's smart.
This is where the hype's going to start to kick in. We're starting to get to that psychological level where all the people that sold it on the way down that were smart enough to do it, now we're going to say, well, let me ride this back up like I did last time.
Right. I mean, I had a big chat with a friend of mine last night, and I was like, what do you think about Ethereum? He's asking about Ethereum, and I'm like, look, he was mentioning, we bought around 385. We're at 1,700 here, and we thought at that time, Howard, that was really high. We weren't sure we bought the right timing. The market had fallen; it could have fallen more. What does it matter if we're buying at 95,000 or 90,000 or 87,000 or so, in our case 77,200 again, if we're going to $250,000, if we're doing the
that's why I have different things. I mean, 80% of my Bitcoin is always just a DCA buy and acquire.
Right.
I just trade with a trading account that holds about 20% of it.
When we talk to people like you, look, what do I do? How do I buy? You got $100, go throw it into Bitcoin, right? Don't go spending it on whatever. Go get it. Don't ask ChatGPT, just ask BigBeat. I like that.
Absolutely, like Charles. That's why I keep the big man around. Carrying him around on my shoulders turned me from a 6'7" center to a 5'1" point guard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Takes negative 334 here, and we are still sliding down. We're getting close to that area here. If Qs fall below 466, I'd be very much at watch here. VIX has also picked up about 2.27%, back above 27. So I don't like the setups that I'm seeing here. But again, we will find out here over the next few minutes as consumer sentiment hits. And that's pretty much. I mean, I know Kashkari talks, but he's not talking until after the market closes, I believe, today.
God, that's a first. That guy likes to talk more than anybody.
Yeah. Well, Waller's giving him a run for his money. I'm not gonna lie. Lately, Bitcoin stuck right around that 94.5 area. Doesn't want to really move much right now. Again, still just battling the same little area here. And Steve, with your thing about Ethereum, and I'm assuming that was Mr. Schurz that asked you that. The thing with Ethereum right now is that this is its chance. It has to. TradFi is adopting cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And for years, the whole thing was, where are they going to do it? They're going to do it on Ethereum, right? And that's what we need to see happen. If that doesn't happen here and we see Solana and these other chains start to be where the JP Morgans do their coins or the other companies do their coins, that's going to be a problem for Ethereum. It needs to dominate this conversion of DeFi into the TradFi world. That is definitely in the backworks now, and we see it, and it's going to be even brought further into the forefront now with the advent of these new rules that allow for more banks to be involved, as I said earlier today, with the Fed Reserve no longer having to really, or saying you don't have to ask questions of us before you start to issue your own stable coins or do things that you would like to do with crypto companies. So you're going to see a lot of interactions. There's a lot of companies that wanted to get into that world. And now they're going to, and you're going to see it happen pretty fast and furious. Like I said, that's the little bit that worries me. There is, we don't want to do it too quickly. I want to do it in a nice, orderly fashion with good rules in place, with good stress testing of it. And that's what worries me, is that, again, I don't think JP Morgan will break the system. It will be a smaller bank that has an outsized influence by a very magnanimous CEO, like we saw with Sam Bankman-Fried, that will grab the sort of the charisma and take a smaller bank that will have huge change in their stock and their money under management because of the fact that they, caught this crypto money. And then what happens is they're the ones that make a bad decision, that don't make sure the right security protocols are in place, don't make sure the right, measures are there to protect those assets. So those are two things you really want to look at as the crypto market sort of moves in the direction of TradFi here. Those would be the two major things that I would keep an eye on. Yeah, so those two letters that were rescinded were the 2022 letter, which previously required state member banks to notify the Fed before engaging in crypto asset activities, and a 2023 letter that mandated a supervisory non-objection process for banks' involvement with dollar tokens, which are stable coins. Those have both been taken away. The Fed, the FDIC, and the OCC collectively withdrew all of basically their statements regarding risk associated with crypto assets, including volatility, legal uncertainties, and liquidity concerns. So, it's definitely a now ask, what I want to see is regulatory sandboxes come into place. It's what we saw sort of start to happen under the CFTC with Giancarlo and the SEC with Clayton. They were very good at working with what you do is you allow these banks and these crypto companies and blockchain companies to work together in a way where you say, hey, listen, we're going to sort of allow you to do X amount of dollars in this first. Let's make sure, let's stress test it. Let's make sure it doesn't have any flaws. It doesn't have any vulnerabilities. And then we can come back and do it in a bigger way. And that's what tends to work. And that's why we had success. Circle was a company that did that very much, who's the folks behind USDC, which now is at a market cap of, it's the third or fourth largest coin out there. So I do see Mr. Flanagan came in. So let's move it away from our talk on crypto and into what's happened in the world of Forex. Mr. Flanagan, how you doing today, my friend?
Oh, good morning, Howard. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, sir. So how you doing, man? It's one of those days.
I'm doing quite well, and I'm really looking forward to getting on the show today and following up from what we talked about on Wednesday. and I, gave some pretty good levels out there. And I want to, if I had a caption to start this off, I would say, the worm is turning.
Okay.
Stop watching the embassy talk. Remember, we're dealing in China with a Politburo of, I don't know, 600,000 members. Everybody's got a voice in that elite governing group over there. And they all want to, there are a lot of hardliners that are going to poo-poo anything that is positive. As I've been saying, watch Scott Bessent. This man at the wheel. He's driving the automobile. We're already getting some talk about South Korea and India. China, there's going to be an agreement. You can look, if there's no agreement, then we're all on the unemployment line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And why is China going to have to? Because their economy is crumbling.
Yeah.
These are things we don't talk about, but they are getting in a deflationary environment that wrecked Japan. If you
I mean, the real estate market's in shambles.
Right. So, I think there's some good news out there. What we need is to see it. And we're coming into a weekend. Obviously, there is risk for the weekend. It's a little bit more balanced now, but the risk, the waiting to risk is that good news comes out. Although, with this move back up in the markets, there is some sort of balance that you could see, a breakdown or another escalation. So, I look at the numbers that are coming out. China is considering removing some of these tariffs or lightening them up. But let's put that aside, that talk. German IFO current assessment came out at 86.4. Where is the slowdown? This is the most recent number. UK retail sales up 0.4, expected down 0.4. U.S. durable goods yesterday, right? A mind-boggling 9%. And today, the Japanese CPI was 3.5 in Tokyo, which was up from 2.9. Now, a little bit of a different side of the coin here. In Japan, we want to see higher inflation, right, because this gives the Japanese the move to begin to raise interest, or let's call it normalize interest rates, presently at 0.5%. And they are next up on our calendar. Bank of Japan, May 1st, has their meeting, and they will be the first one to lead us off. And it looks like we should be expecting a rate increase of probably 0.25%. But therein lies my worm is turning scenario.
Okay. I like that. I just hope it doesn't dig back into the ground. It's it'll be interesting to see, there's all the world leaders are going to be in Rome, so there's going to be a lot of chatter, even though they're all coming and saying, we're not, what will be interesting, because I wonder if they will, because I do think there's a lot of respect for the Pope, and hopefully that holds water more than just bickering. And what we don't want to see is them all pointing fingers at each other and all that stuff in the middle of the Pope's funeral. So I hope that doesn't happen. But, that's, for me, it's still a matter of, and I know you said about Bessent, but he went scathed on China the other day. He's come back down a little bit. I do think he is the sanest man in the room and the guy that I do trust to lead us the right way. So that's a hope there. But, things we're hearing out of DC is that a lot of people in the administration are already looking to leave. They're reaching out to people from the first administration, seeing if they're interested in coming back in different high positions, quite frankly, because of the fact that, now that he's already getting upset with the people that are there. So, again, his favorite word is you're fired, right? So that also worries me. So I will throw that in there as a little kicker from you. I'm hearing, griping out of the Oval Office and out of the higher chambers of the different parts of government that are no longer seem to be walking the same path.
Well, that's what people are murmuring. But then again, everybody loves to kick the guy who's in charge, right? So we certainly know that the press and that the leaking that goes on is never going to be favorable.
Oh, this isn't leaks. This is people in the former administration that I know that are being asked to go back, that are now being actively courted to replace people in the current administration at high level positions.
Okay, show
That's
me
not. That's not the thing.
I come from a world of show me the data, show me the realness of it, and everything else. There's a word that BS walks. So I don't believe any.
Okay. Well, yeah. Watch the headlines. Is all I'll tell you the next few weeks.
Okay.
Watch
Well, if I see somebody resign, then I'm going to take it more seriously. But until then, I don't
watch the communication sides of everything.
Okay, but if we look around, you've got a lot of warnings going on. Christine Lagarde coming out saying that Europe is clearly on the disinflation, I should say, process, and that they're well on track. That's a good thing, probably. But she's reiterating we're not pre-committing to a particular rate path. But let's face it, they're going to lower again at their next meeting. Probably to 2%, and that's where they'll, probably throw it into neutral. You've got the Swiss National Bank, Martin Schlegel, the head of the Swiss National Bank, warning today that economic slowdown in Switzerland cannot be ruled out. Now they're at 0.25%. They're the lowest of all the industrialized nations right now. Yeah. So let me get back to my theory here on the worm is turning. Two things. One, Swiss and Japanese yen. I've talked about safe haven. We talked about how money moves first. If you go back and you look at when everything happened, you saw the yen surge and you saw the Swiss franc surge. Both of those currencies, if we just look, and again, I like to look at the weekly close because the weekly close is what every computer model takes in. That is a big level to watch. So where did dollar yen close last week? 142.11. Presently, dollar yen is around 143.75. Where did dollar Swiss close last week? 81.67. And we are presently at 83.03. Now, if there's such a safe haven play still going on over tariffs, the two major currencies are not showing it. In fact, they're beginning to anchor and come straight out of it.
Yeah.
And this is where money is parked. So, to me, what the FX market is telling me is it's in the rearview mirror. The smart money is already turning out. And look at the equity market in the U.S. It's already come up this week. We're having a marginal down day today. I wouldn't doubt that the down day could accelerate a little bit today as we begin to jostle and position in for the weekend. But the currency market is telling me it's over. And now we come back to the worm is turning and what's going to happen. Money is in perpetual motion, as I highlighted in my on our call on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And what we're going to begin to see as these two currencies are telling me, we're beginning to turn it back out. We haven't gotten to a break point in the dollar index yet. Dollar index was 99.02 last week, presently around the 99.60 level. That is also coming out of it. So let's see where we close Friday. Once these levels are in, watch the machinery. If no bad news comes out, the machinery is going to begin to move it the other direction, and that's back to the U.S., and that could start as early as Monday. I already believe it started already.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue numbers are moving in the right direction. We've held a lot of these. Like I said, the key resistance has turned into support on a lot of the indices like the Qs and the SPY, especially today. If they hold up, I think we could continue to see our next move up, without a doubt there. You've hit on pretty much everything. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had for you.
As we peer into next week, Howard, we got to look for next Friday, payrolls, because I think what is beginning to develop is, where is the slowdown?
Right.
And
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, we know Intel just laid off 20% of its workforce, or is in the process. So we've heard of the layoffs starting to hit for the first time. So we hadn't really heard that, much, but we did hear it in a couple of the earnings reports this week for the first time, talks of layoffs. So we'll see how those play out over the next, again, we're looking in the rearview mirror in the labor report right now. You want to see what's going to happen as we move forward there. But we should get a good view in the next one of what's happening in the federal government on that side, because I do know that those people have already been laid off again from my connections in DC. That thing happened, the beginning of the month. So those would definitely be in the numbers. So I would watch that. My big thing to watch at for labor would be, what are the private numbers in DC, Maryland, Virginia area, because you want to see what the reaction is from the Beltway bandits. What are the Accentures, the companies that earn most of their fees from the U.S. federal government? What are they doing? If they start laying people off, Steve Leishman's been all over that one. If they start to lay people off, then you got to start to get a little bit more nervous. If it's just, again, the federal government laying people off and everybody else is still holding up and the private sector can absorb some of that, then it's a fantastic turnaround. And like you said, that could give us some definite tailwinds to the upside. But if it's the other way, and we're also seeing private drop off with the federal drop off, because you remember the federal is usually your backstop for a lot of these job losses.
Right. And the reason I like to talk about the worm turning, because, Howard, in my career, you're always looking for where the better trade is. And right now, it's as negative as it could be, right? I mean, the world is coming apart. Tariffs are going to destroy everything. And the numbers aren't bearing that out yet.
No, earnings are fantastic across most of them. You know what I mean? And we've seen and what's nice is we've seen the difference. Bad earnings with bad guidance get you a bad move on your stock. Good earnings with a good guidance give you a good move on your stock, the way it should be. So I do think that is the part that we're getting back to. We're getting to a little bit more of a normalized. We still have the tweet aspect without a doubt, but it's becoming a little bit less every time, every day, and it's moving up there. Bitcoin now 95, 123 here, so it's definitely moving to the upside. Oh, sure, BigBeat comes in just as it goes over 95.
What's going on, boys?
How you doing, man? You just
Friday,
out buying some Bitcoin?
Why do I need to? I'm already loaded up. I mean,
and where is the next move? Probably, if we crack back above 100,000. And this kind of is where I'm at. I'm looking at a lot of, well, if it was as bad as everybody is saying, why aren't we falling apart? Right. We've already got that trade on, and this is where I'm beginning to see it turning. We talked about it Wednesday, and I'm highlighting it again today, Steve. The dollar Swiss and the dollar yen, both the big safe haven baskets that everybody ran into, are going to close this week substantially higher than last week, which means money is moving out and getting back into play. And they're trying to turn.
Okay, let's say that. All right, you still back into play. So it goes back into yen, goes back into euro, goes back into Swissy. What are they doing with it? Are they going to take that?
It goes out of those currencies.
Oh, out of those currencies. So it's going back into where?
The dollar.
Yeah. Okay. So
and the U.S. markets, because suddenly the world has basically turned its back. There's been a massive sell-off in the treasuries. When June's tech data comes out, we'll know that for sure. But money cannot sit. It doesn't get paid to sit. It's all computer modeled now.
Okay, so money moves first. That's quote Steve Flanagan.
Yeah,
where's it go, Steve? Where's it going?
Going to Bitcoin right now, Steve. 95,322, trying to break above that key resistance that I pointed out this morning. We break this 95.3. Watch out for an explosive move to the upside, everybody.
I love Bitcoin as an alternative investment at these levels. I think it's a good one. But money, Steve, cannot sit underweight in the U.S. And it is so underweight, probably some of these models have probably pushed to historic levels. So if pricing begins to change in the mix, they must automatically begin to move. It's not like somebody says, no, we're not investing in the United States, because then they override the model. And, ooh, boy, who's going to get scolded on that one?
Yeah, you only get fired for that. You don't get a pat on the back.
That's right. That's right. So that's my theory, that the worm is turning. Money is going to move back. And I think today could be the down day because we have weekend risk, which is a bit more balanced right now than last Friday. So I think that we could begin to, if we watch the currencies, the Dixie is going to close higher too. Last week, 99.02, presently at 99.60. I think we're beginning to see some turn. We haven't hit a break point except in the yen and the Swiss, and those are my early indicators. We haven't hit a break point yet in the other major currencies to begin the real movement of money that I'm looking for.
March retail sales minus autos, gas, building materials, and food services unrevised at up 0.4%. So still seeing a little bit of inflation here. It's not quite out of the inflation world yet. Okay, so then if that's the case, we've obviously seen a big slippage in gold. Oil is trying to push back up. You got to talk to me. Like if I've got all this cash in the sideline, money's coming back into the dollar. The Canadians are staying up in Canada. Luxury taxes are coming off in Canada. Where do I invest? Where do I put the money? Or are we just sitting? Is it sell in May and go away again?
Okay, well, whenever I look for invest, I always look at the big picture and the big money. The big money is underweight US, and the dollar is at its lows. So there's your double bang right there. The US, you're underweight, and you get a low dollar. And that's where the movement's going to happen. And that's what I look to begin to play out. I think next week we'll see a little bit more. But I think once we hit mid-May and we get positive news on the tariff front, I think it opens up and the doors open wide. I'm looking for
Korea, question, right? But if Xi Jinping and embassies of China are saying we're not talking to Trump, and Trump is saying, we're talking to China every day, we're talking to them all the time, what gives? I mean, we're seeing both sides politically, but you just said that the good news, and now you beat me to the question: what news do I need to see in order to be happy and the market's going to take off? There it is.
Korea, Japan, India. These are the ones that you're going to look for. And then as the ice begins to break, others will join in. And I think it'll be positive. There's a lot of people saying, Trump doing a total about face here on the tariff, and people are all going to leave the administration. I don't buy any of it. I don't buy any of it. I think what you're going to see is a series of agreements that are coming out over the next 2 weeks. I think we are now moving into my zone that I've been talking about since January. I said May, June, and we are now on the precipice of May, and I am thinking this is where the good news begins to come out. And goodness gracious, we've had no good news for the last 2 months. So,
we're used to bad news, yeah.
Right. All we need is a little sprinkle here, and the fairy dust comes out, and everything is beginning to turn.
Yeah, you talk about it from the perspective of Japan and the trades, but I'm still seeing like Yemen, Gaza, Ukraine, tariff war, budget deficit. I mean, there's still a lot of bad things out there. Inflation is still high. You got a Fed that not getting along with the president. I mean, I always tell my wife, it's not one thing, but it's always a myriad of things that cause bigger problems, right? We can always handle one or two big problems, but it's when things start to pile up that things get out of control, right? And are we out of control yet, or are we still the precipice, or what are we doing? I mean, it seems that people are nervous. They just don't know what to do. You're seeing that in the markets, right? It goes up a little bit, boom, they sell. Goes down a little bit, ooh, they buy. Right, they're just so nervous right now.
Yep. I'd almost say, to me, it's a controlled fall. It's a controlled nervousness at one level, except the rest of us perhaps it's a lot more serious than that. And we look at it as out of control. I don't think it is. And that's my point here. I don't think it is. I think that the Fed and the administration, I think they've had their little chitter chatter, and I think it's over. And I think the fact that he came back out and said, hey, I'm not looking to fire the guy. I just wish that they would move on rates, was basically, all right, I went too far. Boom, done. As far as inflation's falling and it's not going up. I don't care what people want to put in, all the academics talking about tariffs and how tariffs are a one-time thing and they're back to 10%. And I don't think inflation's going up. And if I look at the world, inflation is not going up. So the United States is not an insulated nation from what's going on in the deflationary area of China. Mm-hmm. As far as China goes, I'm not worried about China. I'm really not. Basically, we could just say, hey, we're going to stop trading. We aren't the ones that get hurt by that.
Right. We're 26% of the world's consumption. I was blown away by that.
We do get hurt by that. I mean,
how so,
this
Steve?
is why Sam's Club and Costco are just jam-packed with people, because they are buying. We are a consumer / services country. I think we do get hurt by that. I mean, Howard and I were just discussing a few minutes ago, DHL and Old Dominion Freight Line and CSX and all these companies are going straight down because they're not moving freight around the country. That does bother people, right? I mean, they want their brand new TVs. They can't stand it. They don't have their new Switch 2, or they want their new Xbox. They want their new whatever the toy is. And yeah, no, I disagree, Steve. I think people will be upset if they don't get what they want.
I'm not saying that people won't be upset. I'm talking at the country level. I'm at a country level. United States is not the one that suffers if the United States and China essentially close doors and no more trading happens. It's China that suffers here. And it's their president that's going to have a big problem.
Well, I mean, I do agree that, they get hurt a lot more, but they also then look to Europe and other places to replace that. You can't replace all of us, but they have already done that, right? You can't buy a U.S. car in most of Europe, and you're seeing the advent of the Chinese EVs take over there. So does it start to change that? Like right now, what we have going for us is we are 26% of the world's consumption level. Does that shrink down under this stuff?
So, I mean, does Europe then turn around and say, okay, we'll be China's savior and buy everything?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, they jumped to Russia pretty quick, didn't they? Didn't we just have a problem because they became so reliant on Russia?
I mean, how idiotic is that, right?
Well, we take that with a U.S. centric view, not with a world centric view.
But I don't think Russians are buying televisions as fast as we are. Do you think?
No, they're not.
I don't think right now, no.
And I think Europe is going to be going, we don't want to get into this, and they're already deeper than
they're deeper than we are.
Yeah. So I think that the whole world trading order, this is a positive. While the negatives are out there in the forefront, it will end up resolving itself in a very timely manner. And my thesis would be, Steve, you always talk about, you got to have a thesis, the next 2 weeks. I think by the middle of May, the thesis starts to bear itself out, and we begin to see some constructive trading arrangements. And this, let's call it month and a half kind of problem quickly is alleviated, and so that the freight carriers and the movers.
All right, so give me a one-line thesis from Steve Flanagan for the middle of May.
The worm's turned. Boom.
The worm has turned. Steve, I think that a lot of people, they need to understand from your perspective that you have seen this over and over and over again over many, many decades of doing this. And I was just on a show myself not too long ago talking about, hey, the world is not ending tomorrow. Start buying stock. And they were all freaked out. Oh, my God, don't tell people that because, we could go farther lower. The world is done. And lightning is going to strike 500 times in the same spot.
Right.
know that the cooler heads are prevailing. But you said that earlier that you didn't think that people were going to be leaving the administration. So, I mean, if we roll the dice and spin the dreidel and all the fun analogies we can make, Scott Bessent seems to be in the driver's seat here right now. It seems that Howard Lutnick seems to be on the outskirts. It almost feels like Peter Navarro now is standing outside the gates of the White House, Camelot. And Scott Bessent, Secretary of Defense, seems to be on his cell phone and signal. This administration is a little bit more wonkier in a good way than his previous administration.
Yes.
That they are thinking more in the perspective of, okay, we need to set some policies, we need to set some ideas down, and we need to have a plan. Now, it was willy-nilly in the first one. Just we're going to have the best people, and I think he went through 27 secretaries before we even got to the first halfway decent. And then 2 years later, we had COVID. This one seems to be a little stronger in the aspect of what they know, what they're doing, but they don't. It's a little more contrary. So I know you don't like numbers, but Trump was riding high coming into the administration with two things. Immigration was very high. People were very much on his bandwagon for immigration, and very much on for cleaning up the messes in government and Doge and the economy. Both of those he's now underwater with numbers. I know you don't like those numbers, but we're starting to see some negativity coming in, especially in immigration, because of what's happened. Some of these things. Do you think that Trump is taking a wider picture now and saying, okay, look, there's no COVID in the middle. I do have to serve out 3.5 years. I do need to make a little more quieter period here. I do need to have circle the wagons, shall we say. What I want to know, Steve, and I have my opinion. I can probably give it to, but from your perspective of 40 plus years in the currency markets and understanding the world in general, as my father always says, when the United States sneezes, the world has the flu. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have an administration who seems to be getting underwater with the American people popularity. We seem to have him trying to set a little more of a course now, pulling back the art of the deal or whatever, pulling back. What is it that he needs to do, not for the next good news piece, setting out a course for the next 6 months to a year? Because he thinks that he'll probably lose the midterms, which is in political terms is normal. It's not abnormal to lose the midterms. What does he need to do the next 6 months in a year to make this smooth, to make people happy, get back on track, get away from this nonsense of tariffs, get away from all this? What does he need to do now?
One thing, the economy.
Okay.
That's all. You said 6 months. 6 months from now puts us at the end of the year, roughly October, November. I think the stock market could be at new highs. I think you could see a tremendous, the employment situation continues very, very positive. And all those things, Steve, turn every single negative around. And more importantly, it sets him up for the midterms. And that's where I think they want the big power. They want a majority in Congress and hold the Senate. That's what their goal is. And I think it's 6 months. That's what his objective is. And
okay, but you're saying economy, that's great. And that. I mean, he's learning very quickly. And let me get this real quick. When Elon Musk went to work on Doge, he realized very quickly that he said it's a quote. I'm over my head, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to run for office, but I used to, when I was in Washington, I used to talk to these members when they'd come to Washington. Now, what do? You now won the majority. Well, we got to govern, and it's not easy, right? It's not easy to govern. It's not easy. A lot of these things that are in place that they're trying to get rid of are Republican and Democrat sides. They're they're trying to get it for their district. They're trying to get money for whatever Raytheon, because Raytheon's in my district, or I'm trying to get this bill passed because money comes back to my district. That's her job. So what does he need to do in the economy? Does he need to get people going again, excitement again, buying those new TVs?
Steve, all this is in the past. And governing is exactly what the key is. And as Musk has said, it's really hard. He has come in and cracked everything, and now
Right.
he's got to rebuild it. And I think you said 6 months, 6 months. I think the economy is doing well. There are job creations going on. Inflation is going to be probably lower. The Fed will have cut rates at least twice in 6 months. And so everybody will be like, you know what? He came in, smashed everything, and look, it's all good. And you see, that's the way I see this playing out. And I do watch, as you know, I've been saying Scott Bessent, Scott Bessent. This is the guy I'm
Yeah.
watching. Why am I watching him so carefully? Okay. This guy took a job in the Soros Fund in 1990. And guess what happened in 1992? The Soros Fund, if you want to look up anybody, to our viewers, go out and Google Soros $1 billion day. Okay. They took the Bank of England out of the exchange rate mechanism, which was where they were forced to operate. This man understands very well how markets work and how disruptive one can be in order to achieve goals. That's where my thesis gets anchored.
So Soros broke the Bank of England. We all know that.
Yep.
What do we need to do? Break the Bank of the United States in order to reconstruct this?
No, it won't be anything like that, dire. It'll be that the world trading system has been shaken and cracked, and it is now quite transparent and will be transparent as we go forward to everyone how these tariffs really are holding everyone back, not just the United States, but everyone. And I think
that's a great point, Steve. And you think about it from the perspective of the WTO. Where the hell have they been? They've been on the sidelines.
Yeah. What have they done here? I haven't seen anything from them.
Right.
These are bureaucratic organizations that we just pour money into, and they accomplish nothing. Steve, we both understand the bureaucracy that can be, exhibited, and the little backdoor meetings where the jibber jabber goes on and suddenly the decision was made in favor of that guy and not that guy. It has nothing to do with what is a constructive outcome. We don't need these organizations. Not today. Back perhaps out of, in the 40s, the 50s, and 60s, we needed organizations to get together where we could air everything out. Today, you don't. It's just communication happens so differently. Markets transact in milliseconds. We don't need these long bureaucratic sit-down meetings to solve things.
So just George Soros should break the WTO. We get it all done, right?
Yeah. Well, I think those organizations are broken. I merely look at Scott Bessent as having been a senior managing director in an organization back in the days that understood instability, understood, how markets and price structure works. And I just think that perhaps that experience that he had gives him a very good foundation to be in charge of the U.S. Treasury that has the steering wheel in their hands.
Yeah, I agree. He is definitely the calming, soothing, and the voice of reason within the Oval Office. I totally agree with that. Steve Flanagan, my man, always. I will see you next week, man. You are spitting out some serious knowledge, and I think it's important that people understand that from their perspective. Sometimes I feel like that the world moves too fast, and they don't realize, they don't see the forest for all the trees. And thank you for showing us the forest, Steve Flanagan. All right, man, it's 10:30. We'll get out of here. I think Howard's already gone to bed, so I'll talk to you guys on Monday.